Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad that you joined us this morning, and for those of you that are new, welcome, and to those of you that are back, well, thanks for putting up with me for this whole time. That's all I can say. It's May, and so because it's May, I don't think that any of us in the last 10 years can get through a May without thinking a little bit about the tornado. We're at our 10th anniversary this year, and it still is a very interesting part of our history, and it will always be because of what we experienced 10 years ago. And today I'm going to have some guests on, Toby and Ty Hulstine, who have their own tornado story to tell, and again, where they have come from and where they're headed and where they are now because of that experience, 10 years ago. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Stick around, and we'll be right back to talk a few tornado memories.
I have arthritis in my knees, and it was just excruciating. I wish I would have done something sooner. I found myself not able to go up and down stairs, which is bad because we realized we were going to have to sell our house. We decided just to take the worst one first, and we did. I was back to work in 6 weeks. 6 months later, I had surgery on the second one, and I'm back to work in 5 weeks. And I was a little scared, a little apprehensive, even though I knew everything that was going to happen. But I was just impressed. Life is short, and I waited. I think I waited too long.
Well, again, thanks for being with us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. My guests this morning, Toby and Ty Hulstine. And so we're here talking about the tornado and some of those memories. So why don't you just go ahead and tell everybody first a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into your memories of the tornado.
Sure. Here we go.
All right. Kick it up.
Well, obviously, this is my firstborn son, but Ty. And I grew up, fourth generation Joplin. He went to Webb City and graduated from Webb City High School. So I had a company at the time for several years working for Lloyd's of London Insurance. I had 26 states office. I'd moved away from Joplin, was in Springfield for a while. And Ty was graduating. He graduated actually at mid semester or whatever in 2000. Yeah. So the graduation, was scheduled for later. And
I had just moved into the Plaza Apartments.
Yeah, I put him in the Plaza Apartments.
For college.
Right. Get ready for school.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So
Good timing.
Right. Well, I wanted to try to prepare him for college, because he was kind of like catered to. He was young, grandparents. And
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I wanted him to
youth.
at least learn how to, I don't know, wash his own clothes or something. But so, he was staying there at the Plaza before he was going off to school and again to college. And we decided to have his graduation party in the Plaza Clubhouse there behind Walmart. And everything was fine. Day was warm. It was nice. He'd just gotten a new car. I'd gotten him for graduation. And anyway.
2011 Mustang.
Yeah. My dad said I needed an MRI anyway. So to kind of speed through this, we essentially, the day went on, the weather started to get bad, all the guests had left, with the exception of his grandparents and siblings and his mom. And then people started coming into that's where they went when there was bad weather, was to the clubhouse,
right.
Which essentially was, a rock front, the rest was prefab, but that's, was at the time, nobody was expecting,
right.
This monster of a tornado.
A glass bag.
Right. So there was glass overlooking the pool area, and we had gotten everybody, I'd made everybody kind of go, I kind of took a little charge of it, made everybody go to, and so Ty, the men's and women's room. And, that was pretty much it for storm shelter. And we were outside for a moment, and Ty had just had a labral stitch put in on his shoulder with Dr. Lawrence, so he was in a sling. And he just said, "Dad, you've seen tornadoes here before in Joplin, where's it at?" And essentially I told him where the sky meets the ground. I said, and I can't tell where it ends in width. And we literally saw the flag kind of drop, the oxygen levels are hard to breathe. So I was pushing him through the door to go to the bathrooms. So his mom and I were still there looking out the glass, and it kind of started like a car wash sound. And then it just exploded. Glass was everywhere, rocks flying. It was, the walls were essentially breathing, and stretching. So we were running, things flying, and we rounded the corner, weight set goes past your head from the, weight room, and it's kind of hard, it slows down, believe it or not, at that point.
Oh, yeah.
You just start going, what? You can't process it. It's happening so quick.
Because things that you would never have
Right.
expected to see in normal life, all of a sudden, a
Right.
weight set flying past you. Yeah.
Right. And, essentially watching sticks go through walls, it was insane. So I just gotten into the men's room, and his mom came in after, and I kind of pushed her over towards the sinks and shut the door. And essentially for me, at that point, it was pretty much like the movie Twister in the beginning. I had the hold of the door, and I went up into the tornado. Couldn't tell you how far, and was then pushed back down into the bathrooms, and then shot backwards through would be the front of the building. So it would be through the front of the wall, and ended up, about 50 feet or so, and under 8 feet of rubble, that there was a roof that was on my head, so I was pretty much like this.
We were all,
there was so much happening. I could make out him a little. He was essentially on all fours, Ty was, and the other part of the ceiling was on his back, so nails and all. So we had essentially a roof that we were both holding. And I can tell you this: when your kids are yelling for you and you can't do anything to get to them to help them, that's one of the worst feelings.
Oh,
as
I can imagine as a parent,
right?
Because you're basically helpless.
Yes.
And yet, what are your
Yes.
kids needing at that point in time is your help.
Right. And at that point, being under that kind of pressure, I could essentially hear my neck and back breaking. And so I had 3 breaks in the center, T7, 8, 9. And then C5 and 6 fractures in my neck. Ribs were all broke. Anyway, it was all happening so quick. But I couldn't really move from that, because if I did, the roof would fall, and the gentleman next to me, it would have crushed him. So I could make him out.
Yeah, after it collapsed, I started, kind of clearing everybody, makeshift, one of the bottom floor apartments, putting everybody in there and stuff. And I didn't really know where he was at the time. And so I was kind of thinking in the back of my head, like, he's all right, he's all right, he's all right. And he stuck in there, and I finally found him, and I don't know how, but all of a sudden got super strength and just picked up the ceiling, and he was basically drowning too, because at that point it started raining and hailing, and he couldn't move.
Well, what had happened is they got the gentleman out next to me, and so I had maneuvered thinking it would be better to be laying flat, or, and I couldn't move. I had no spine, basically, at that point. So the water was then coming in, and I thought, I really got irritated, because I've lived through this now, and now I'm going to drown in 4 inches of water. So I'm a little irritated. And
I got gotten one of my friends.
Yeah, he had gotten me out in time.
He drives a Jeep, so I carried him over the rubble and stuck him in the back of my friend's Jeep, and he basically told him an ambulance flew by, and he said, "Stay on that tail."
Well, the kid asked me. These were all 18-year-old kids, and he said, how do we get to the hospital? Because at that point, we're driving around, and there's Walmart, which looks like a salvage yard. I mean, some things that were there that people shouldn't see did. And everybody started to come together. From what I could tell, I was in and out. But he said, how are we going to get to the hospital? And I said, there's an ambulance with its lights on. It's going to a hospital somewhere. And so he followed it, and it went into Freeman Hospital. But before that, one thing I want to brag on him about is, I watched him pull his sling off, barely make it out. His sister was going up, and he grabbed her ankle, pulled her down. And the reason why he ended up with 3 shoulder reconstructions was he pulled 30 some odd people out afterwards, and it was pretty incredible. My joke was he couldn't clean his room, but he could perform under pressure. Yeah. So he did a tremendous amount, so I'm very proud of that. And I was the last one he pulled out, and the joke was, what took you so long?
Well, and it would figure that you would be the last one, just because.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so they moved my graduation to a day later. So it was basically like 2 days after the
4 days.
4 days after the tornado, and he was in the hospital, and they told him, the doctor said, you know, you can't leave the hospital, you're in bad shape, your spine and stuff, you're in a wheelchair, you know. And he said, but if you can walk from this point to that point.
Yeah, he said if you can walk 300 feet unattended and be off your pain medication for a day, he said, then I'll let you. I was gambling, you know.
That you weren't going to be able to do it.
Yeah, and so it was 400 feet that I walked and was off a day and a half, and I said, get me a wheelchair. Essentially, I didn't come down there and wait, 18 years, not to go to his graduation.
Yeah.
So that was pretty.
Those are the kinds of things that motivate us as human beings, that kind of give us that super strength.
Yeah, exactly.
That give us, I'm going to do this anyway, because, those are the relationships that you have as a family,
right?
Or that so many other people who, again, went through,
right?
That vortex of that tornado,
right?
That they have those kinds of stories, and I mean, and our city is full of them.
Well, what's neat is my Aunt Tedra, who was in the apartment there at New Hampshire, and she didn't survive. But the people that were coming together, it was amazing.
It's weird how a tragedy like that can happen, but it can have some good come out of it, bringing our bond, closer and stuff. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It has. I mean, it was really, that was the starting point, 10 years ago, for Ty and I. And there was, as growing up, and, being divorced and things like that, you don't have that day-to-day thing. And trust me, we've had our days, but there is a certain bond that's there. So.
Sure. Well, and again, I think that there's, you had that bond as family, so I mean, that strengthened that for you. And so many of us, across the city didn't have as much bond until we came together for recovery.
Right.
Again, my church, it's just the two Catholic churches in town. My church, we had one tree branch that was down in the yard, and the other church got flattened.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, we wound up losing people.
Right.
And strangely enough, no parishioners from the others. So it's just all weird. The whole thing is just, but it brings you all together because, it didn't matter, as far as I'm saying, it didn't matter who was doing what. Everybody was determined after that point in time to say, we're going to fix this as best we can. We're going to make it better.
It was amazing, from the hospital to everything. I was in and out, of course, and
my mom
not in good shape.
My mom actually worked at Freeman, and I stole her badge from her and snuck in through the back door to get in until I could find him to make sure he was all right.
Well, the running joke is he had used both of his shirts as tourniquets for people, and done a lot. So he had no shirt on, shorts and tennis shoes, and it was cold and rainy, and so he essentially walked and hitchhiked to get to the hospital. And he did find me, and he got in and gave me a hug. And the funny thing is, I had all of his graduation money that was still in my pocket. And I said, "So you need some money?" And it was just classic, And so he says, "Yeah, I kind of don't have anything anymore."
A great dad line.
Yeah, but he's like, "I kind of don't have anything anymore,"
Yeah. Well, we're talking about memories from the tornado. Survival stories is really what we've got this morning. I hope this isn't re-traumatizing for some of you, but it is kind of good for us to kind of, in some ways, think back to that time and how strange our lives were. So we're hearing the story of two of those survivors today. We're going to be right back with the Hulstines after this quick break. So we're going to be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, thanks for sticking with us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. My guests this morning, Toby and Ty Hulstine, who were some of the folks who wound up taking the direct hit from the tornado, and here now to tell some of those memories and stories. So, where have you been since then? So, I mean, we talked a little bit about the injury. How long did it take you to recover, both of you? Those kinds of things.
So basically, I've had 3 shoulder surgeries and a knee surgery, over the years. But after it all happened, he lived up by Springfield in Ozark, and I couldn't play football anymore or anything like that. So he didn't know really what to do.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
what do you do with a kid that's grown up
so-
his whole life playing sports? It really was his life and was determined and had a path, and then that's gone.
So I started coaching at the high school there, and even though I have that big love for the sport, coming from the tornado, something was tugging me back that way to where I wasn't happy, even though I was doing what I loved there. So we.
Well, essentially, the business I had at the time, we did claims for insurance company overseas, and that was essentially, they thought I was dead. So overnight, they had transferred every file, and we went from a great life and living to essentially broke overnight. And so we restarted, our whole life, and we decided to come back to Joplin, come back home.
But we wanted to still, give back to the community and stuff. So we started Next Level Media. Basically, we started 2 iPhones and end zones at football games,
Putting it up
filming
on
and
a
putting it up
Facebook
on
page.
Facebook and Twitter and stuff.
Highlighting kids and giving them that shot, that view,
Right.
that they wouldn't normally get,
Yeah.
and something a little different. And we thought, we started with that in a magazine, and it's just now mushroomed into a
grown
great
to-
deal.
Yeah, now we're in the Griffin building on Main Street in Joplin, up on the 4th floor, and it's grown into a game day show, live streaming, games.
Our own network channels on
Interviews.
Apple TV and Roku and Amazon. Just when people say, "What do you do?" I don't even really know what to tell them. It's just really been a great ride, since then.
But the best part, even though we started from absolutely nothing, the best part is that we get to go to work every day and enjoy working with the kids.
Yeah.
Covering these youth kids all the way up through high school and watching them, develop not just as good athletes over the year, but as people, and their personalities and going off to do great things.
Something happened during that we didn't expect, and that is when you're interviewing a kid or putting him up anywhere, they just kind of they light up when they see us come in there. And you watch that kid just get more confident in their life. It all intertwines, as
Right.
people. And we watched this happen, and we thought, there's something going on here that's a whole lot more than just a media or a sports company. We're actually in the lives of these kids, and talking with them. And, when you get a parent that calls you and you've seen a kid get ready to graduate and you've had that 4 years with them, and they say, "Thank you for what you did," and you basically are like, well, "That's fine, but what?" You don't understand. They were so timid. They didn't have confidence. What you guys took time to do, they always remembered.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. You changed your whole viewpoint on everything. You go from being an insurer, to doing media.
Yeah.
And it's like, hello.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing we wanted when we did this, was to always be positive. There was enough negativity, especially in sports media. That's what sells, so to speak. And we've shown that isn't all that sells.
Yeah.
The positive is a good way to be.
And covering all the kids, not just the main name, best
Right.
athletes, all of
Right.
them, not letting them, slip through the cracks.
Right.
And getting,
Where you see a small kid that's
Yeah.
playing a sport, and you walk up and say, "Hey, can we catch you for a minute, or put your picture up on our Facebook page?" And
Like me, I'm not even a starter.
yeah, pretty much.
But
and
that's the best part, though, is getting what we do, everybody. We love it.
Yeah, and we started with the interview. There wasn't a business model. There wasn't a book to go. And there's still not. Essentially, we were writing it and have written it. And you
Speeding train with no brakes.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. A speeding car and trying to pump the brakes, it doesn't work. But it's been a great ride. And to think back 10 years, it's gone by a little fast.
Yeah.
We have our own things that we deal with, our own, remembering things and things that you just battle through, but we get up every day, and I think we have probably the best job in the world.
Yeah, and it goes back to that kind of weird feeling like you were explaining and talking about, it was a horrible, horrible tragedy, and really bad tragedy, and but it's built this,
It's a bond. It's different, and I can say that
not
growing
just with
up,
us,
not just with us, the
with
community.
all the kids in the community, and
These kids
people.
now, and it's not just social media. It's everything. They communicate. We didn't do that when I was in high school, But go ahead. you think the tornado had a big impact on that, with kids starting to come together and talk and cross mingle, you know, Carthage to Joplin, Joplin to Webb.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting to me. Yeah, the kids are. I would think that our younger generations, you know, certainly like we did. I mean, we had to communicate differently than our parents did, and they're going to have to communicate differently than we did.
Right.
You know, just because. And I mean, you know, now that you're, you know, what are you, 20?
28.
28. So
not quite as old as you guys yet.
No, yeah, not nearly. But I'm just saying, if you look at that, you know, like, so you're an old guy too compared to them.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when they start talking about how they have to do things,
Right.
to do some of that. But I will say that there is. I mean, let's face it. The kids that you're interviewing now, many of them don't even have any recollections or very little recollection of what happened to us on that day, or to any of the folks that were involved.
Yeah.
But you know, I still like to think that it made such an impact on the community, and despite the fact that it was, as you said, horrible, and you know, you know, like I say, everybody said after the whole thing, well, what would be your best advice? You know, for surviving in a tornado, and I said, avoid it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yes.
my best advice.
Yes.
Just avoid it and stay out of it.
Right.
But I think that there was just something about the community that made it possible for everybody to take that deep breath and start to just forge a new path forward.
Yeah, and going through that experience, the kids that, you know, like you said, you know, don't really know what it was or whatever, we can explain to them and help them and give, you know, the remembrance that people deserve from that time.
You know, that's neat. You bring a point. He's 28. I'm 29. So.
Okay. You're a young dad, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but when we,
yeah,
that's
not
it.
quite.
but when we are doing this also, I can relate to a lot of the parents and talk with them. He does relate with the kids very well because of his age range. And we've got a couple of guys, you know, Eli Eminger and Sam Ersman. They, you know, graduated in 2020, the COVID class, and my younger son Josiah did with them at Joplin. And so bringing those guys on, it's really neat because they still have connections with those other kids. They have smaller siblings that are in junior high or elementary school, and it's really grown into. I mean, this is where we are from. This is homegrown. It didn't get imported. It's right here, and I think it says a lot for what people can do. They can do anything, and there's a lot of support in the community, and that's what makes us different.
Well, you know, and as I think about some of the things we reflect upon on this show, you're fourth generation Joplin, you're fifth generation Joplin.
No, well,
almost.
Webb City.
Webb City, okay.
Lord
All
have
right.
mercy.
But I
All
love
right,
Joplin.
greater Joplin area. That's
There
what we
you
always
go. I love
say in the
Joplin.
greater Joplin area.
He does love Joplin.
He's converted me to.
That's okay. That's good. That's deep communism, deep relationships.
Yep.
But when we start thinking about all those things that kind of knit us together, one of the things I love about this community is the fact that we do have kind of a corporate memory, and you know, I remember starting to talk about some of those things at that time. We were talking about like Joplin Strong. You know, and there is something about this community. There's something that's enduring about this community that basically says we can, you know, we dig down deep and we just try to we deal with what we get,
Right.
whatever is dealt us, and we try to move forward. And I'm going to say, you know, from a faith perspective, I said, you know, we move forward in faith, whether it's faith in a higher power or just faith in the fact that we've got some common bonds that hold us together.
Right.
Those things matter. And in this community, I think we've been blessed, despite the tragedy, to help, you know, make sure that we remember the things that are important to us.
Yeah.
And some of those things are great that you're highlighting some of those things for
Right.
some of these younger members of our communities.
Yeah, the best. I mean, I know you feel the same way. The best thing for us is waking up every morning knowing that you get to impact these kids' lives in a
it's
positive way and set them in a positive direction.
And honestly, because there isn't a book written on it, it's exciting because every day is different. Every day is new, and what we bring to the table is not just ours; it's the entire community's, and that's what we've set out for. You know, we always laughed and said we're not competing with anyone but ourselves, and to be better. And so, you know, for me back then, coming back home, is kind of, it's neat because, growing up here and the family that you have, but not just that, not just blood family, but everyone extended, their family in this area. And just seeing the reaction is neat. And for us at the beginning, for me, it was, what do I do with a kid that was going to go off to college, and all that's gone now. And now we look back and go, yeah.
Kind of full circle.
And it does.
Yeah.
And again, it's passing on to the the generation that comes after us.
Right.
Or we stand on the shoulders, as I said last week to another guest. We stand on the shoulders of those that went before us.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's some things that our youth today will always know about growing up here, and that is that they stand on the shoulders of a lot of survivors, a lot of people whose stories are like yours,
Right.
That come along and say, we're still gonna make the best out of this, even though we were dealt a very difficult blow to overcome. We're gonna be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
Blessings and greetings of Mercy to you. My name is Anna Nichols. I am a Sister of Mercy and currently the leader of Heritage and Spirituality at Mercy International Association. I love the fact that sisters throughout time have gone where they have been called to go, and they have often picked up ministries that they never intended to pick up. 25 years ago, there were 22,000 Sisters of Mercy globally. Today we're down to about 6,200 with Sister Rock and some of the others. But despite the fact there are 6,500 or 6,200 sisters left, there is an amazing number of women and men of Mercy who are working alongside us, and that continues to expand and expand, and for me that is incredibly exciting. So as far as National Catholic Sisters Week, I really look at the legacy that they have passed on and the fact that so many women, men, young people are living Mercy today. That really is for me what's significant.
Well, again, thanks for giving us your Sunday morning, or at least a little piece of it. I was here this morning with Toby and Ty Hulstine, who were survivors of our tornado back 10 years ago. And hearing that story of how they took what was tragedy in their own lives and tried to turn it into something that they can still be proud of today. Not just surviving, but really thriving after what would have been a very difficult episode to conquer in life. The number of those stories in this community is countless. I can just tell you that there are a lot of people, and there are a lot of holes, because we'll never get back the people that we lost during that time. And so for those people that were taken from us, they'll always be missed, and they'll always be right here. But the rest of us had no other choice other than to move on, because that's what we had. So we hope that you'll join us again next Sunday for Faith in Our Hometown. Let's stick together and have a great week.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.